All right, welcome back, Geeks Worldwide. This is your host, Rico, a Sheik of Geek from Geek Wars. You may know me from those pages on Facebook, but also on my Instagram page. If you're not familiar, go to your respective social media outlets, go onto the respective pages of the Sheik of Geek or the YouTube page, or you can go to Instagram and Facebook and look up Geek Wars, W-A-R-Z. Request membership, subscribe, and overall, just appreciate all the geeky goodness that is the Sheik of Geek. All right, well today I'm really just going to jump in real quick and do a quick review of the newest installment from the superhero movie universe. This case is going to be Bloodshot. For those of you who are not aware, that's the newest offering from good old Fast and Furious star Vin Diesel. Now, I don't know what I was going to expect when I got into that, because of course you always wonder if Vin Diesel's involved, is it worth watching? Is it going to be more of the same? Is it going to be anything original? Well, let's just jump right in and I'll tell you what to expect. So I'll say this much. First, I'll start off with the most basic things here. Spoiler alert. For those of you who probably haven't seen it since it literally just came out today, or yesterday I should say, hey, know that I'll probably be pointing out a couple real quick things in here that you may not want to hear if you really want to be surprised by the movie and want to go into it blind. So if you don't care, feel free to listen ahead, maybe get a little bit out of it that maybe you weren't thinking of. But if you don't want to hear any spoilers, stop what you're doing right now, hit pause, get out of here, just move on. So now that's out of the way, real quick summary, because not everyone's as well versed in this character as most geeks who read comics like myself. So a quick summary on that. Bloodshot is actually a character based on a character from the Valiant Comics company. They were an offshoot back in the early 90s who basically were trying to give everyone an alternative to the big two, being Marvel Comics and DC Comics. So they came out with a few different slew of characters that really went on to some financial success for a little while there. Unfortunately, it petered off after a few years and we haven't heard much from them. There were a couple attempts to reboot them. But yeah, that's a very good comic from what I understand. I haven't read the whole series. I've read some comics here and there. But I will say that once Ninjak comes out, remember you heard it here first, right? But anyway, specifically the Bloodshot, this is the story of Ray Garrison. He's an elite soldier, because of course there's never the crappy, shitty soldiers that they make the movies out of, right? He's basically the quick version of it. He's basically just killed following a secret mission. He gets reanimated and brought back to life using nanites, nanotechnology, which, of course, that's not something new in technology in movies and comics anymore, right? They always come back to life. And used by a tech organization, big, high-tech, evil organization, go figure, so he can kill other people for them. Now, slowly, he kind of remembers his past, remembers what he used to do, who he was, and then he decides that I've got to take control. So, those are basically the high points of what this movie is about. So I'll just say that much. If you're looking for something that's going to be totally mind crazy, original, and things like that, this is probably not the movie for you. But my first point in saying all this is, it's action. Definitely action. That's the big word you're going to see and you're going to think of when you see this movie. Definitely whether it's car chases, gunfights, hand-to-hand combat, people running back and forth, people trying to get things done. Of course, everything's done on a timer, so there's always something that has to be done by a certain amount of time before something blows up or something gets downloaded to the internet or something weird, right? So action is definitely something you will not lack in this. Now, of course, on the flip side of the coin, what is the one thing that you will always know in one of Vin Diesel's movies? It's one of the things you first see in the first opening credit scenes before the credits even run. Of course, Vin Diesel has to be in a tank top, again, because that's apparently in his contract or something. Sure, yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, I mean, not a lot of originality here, but I will say this though. I mean, when it comes to that, you will not be disappointed. Now, the one thing when I go back to that action thing I was going to say about, for those of you who like video games, when you talk about things like Call of Duty or PUBG or Fortnite, things like that, things that make you go stealthy, like Battlefront, things like that, you'll probably think, damn, this looks like a video game. It actually does feel like a video game. So there's a couple of scenes in there that I felt like I should have had a controller in my hand, because I felt like I really was going to do something really big, really crazy, really awesome. And then, of course, mess up and then have to redo that whole scene again, like I usually do in most of my video games. So going back to that, it goes back to that whole action vibe. One other thing I was going to point out to this again, remember I said about there's a familiarity about how this movie goes around. I, in my brain, said that it felt like an amalgam of the Matrix movies and maybe T2. Now, what I mean by that? Well, in this movie, of course, they're talking about cybernetic enhancements. So, things like Terminator, you'll see always, the crazy, things that you can do with cybernetics. Somebody got running around with like prosthetic feet in this movie. I'm not joking. Prosthetic feet. Other guy can't see, so they make him basically this human eye thing. I'm not explaining it right, but basically they hardwire his brain so that they got cybernetics in him that can see for him, that are like weirdly in his chest instead of his head. But okay, whatever. Also, you got a lady there who can actually uses for all lack of a better way of saying it, like an electronic computerized lungs. I don't know why it's on a remote control, but you would think you'd want to make that something that she'd use all the time, right? But yeah, that part reminded me of the Terminator, T2, whatever you want to talk about franchise. When we're talking about the other half of it, we're talking about the Matrix. What's the Matrix about? It's a glorified technology meets, augmented reality, right? So basically in there's different scenes in there where different action heroes and people, soldiers, had to literally jack in, if you want to call it that, to use that a Matrix term, or plug in to their cybernetic enhancements. So when you upgraded, you literally saw somebody put something into his spine, something got plugged into his back. That may sound familiar, to the Matrix as well, right? So aside from that, of course, obviously the action and hand-to-hand fighting scenes were reminiscent of the Matrix as well. So I will say that. So if you liked Terminator, if you like the Matrix, this might be a good movie for you, because it's going to definitely not lack in, what was that word I used? Action, right, exactly. So that being said, there's one other thing I want to point out before I give my final thought, and you're probably thinking, wow, he's actually being short for once, right? But wait till I get to this next point. Basically, when we talk about comic references, because this is based on a comic book, right? I thought there was one thing that it didn't even hit me until after I left the theater. I was like, why does this sound familiar? Why was I thinking that this bothered me in the back of my nether regions of my brain? Well, there was one part where Vin Diesel's character, Ray Garrison, he actually was married, right? And his whole thing, and remember I said how he's trying to reclaim his life, right? Supposedly she was dead and he realized that she wasn't. Spoiler alert. Sorry. But basically what happens there, he goes to find her, his wife. When he does actually find her, he finds out one thing that is very, very wrong. Well, a couple things. Number one, apparently she lets him know that she moved on from him because 5 years have actually passed. Now, those of you who know Image Comics will probably think this sounds familiar. So I'm going to get to that in a second, but I want to point out a couple of things. He finds out that 5 years have gone by and she has since remarried. And on top of that, she has kids. So something that she wanted to do with him, I guess, settle down and, have a family and things like that, and with a 5-year gap, apparently has happened, and he just now, like more than halfway through the movie, just now figured that out. They never told him that. So he's been dead for 5 years, essentially. It took him 5 years to get him reanimated and back to being this soldier of fortune and super soldier, if you want to call him that. Essentially, like a digital version of Captain America, super soldier, if you want to call him that, which I think is kind of a cool way of saying. I gotta copyright that or something. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But here's why I think that's important. I thought that it was very, very eerily similar to the origin story of Image Comics' Spawn. So those of you who know about comics and some of the movies, Todd McFarlane from Image Comics has a character called Spawn. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to just tell you a real quick summary. Again, I'm going to say this as easily and as succinct as possible. Spawn is his alias is he was alive was Al Simmons, who was an elite soldier. Again, they never tell you the story about the shitty soldiers, the elite soldiers, right? Who actually was killed, okay, at some point. What he did was he actually made a deal with the devil that, he left a wife behind who he never had a family with or anything like that. And he made a deal with the devil. So, hey, if you let me go back to my wife, take me back to my wife, and I will serve your armies in hell. So the devil, being the devil, says, cool, I'll make a pact with you. Of course, what the devil didn't tell him was he didn't tell him when he was going to return him. So literally, he returned Al Simmons, aka who was going to be Spawn, to his wife's time frame 5 years in the future. Sound familiar? Yeah. Here's the other kicker. When he goes to check up on her, he realizes that she actually moved on as well. Moved on with, ironically, his best friend, got married, and had a child. Something he never was able to give her. So go figure. I'm seeing some incredible parallels. So if you're saying this, that, hey, they're different because, one's Image Comics, one's Valiant Comics, to me, the only difference between those two stories is one is technology based, which is, I guess, Bloodshot. The Spawn is the same story, but with magic involved, right? So, I don't know. Super Soldier comes back 5 years later, finds his wife, already remarried, has kids. Yeah, I see weird parallels there. So, take that for what you will. So, that being said, I just thought that was my little Easter egg I'd throw out to you guys. So, if you want something original there, something that nobody else is talking about, maybe that might be it, and I'll get credit for it somewhere. But I'm sure somebody somewhere has already talked about that in the comics, not necessarily about this movie, but, just talking about it in general. So, guess what? This is my final segment here. I'm just going to tell you what I thought about the movie itself, right? Now, I'm going to be very succinct with this because, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this quickly. Good for you guys. But I'm going to say this much. It's got great action sequences, but I will say this, do not expect to see a lot of stuff that you've never seen before. So I appreciated what it was for what it was. I mean, I wasn't looking for, a revolutionary movie or something that's going to necessarily launch a whole new comic book movie universe, but I was looking for an action movie, which is what I got. It looked very eerily similar to a video game, and I saw some familiar tropes like technology, jacking into technology, enhanced reality, things of that nature, right? So out of 5 stars, I'm going to give it, and you're probably going to be surprised I say this, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I know, I'm kind of surprised I did it myself. The reason I did that is because, again, even though I went in there semi-skeptical because of Vin Diesel being the man in it, at least he didn't make any old classic cars do a wheelie that I remember, and like he does in Fast and Furious, right? And I just appreciated it for what it was, and I just didn't go into it with my Chic of Geek goggles on. I went to it and just thought about, okay, is this a good movie? Is this an enjoyable action movie? Which it was. There you go. So that's my review of Bloodshot. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think, hey, Chic of Geek, you're full of it? Or, hey, thanks for pointing that out, Chic of Geek. Well, I'm going to tell you this much. If you would like to express your opinion, which I am always encourage everyone to, please feel free to comment below. Go to the YouTube page. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Share it. Comment on it. Like it. And always feel free to return and listen to all my other things. And also, if you go to my Geek Wars page on Facebook, make sure it's spelled Geek, G-E-E-K-W-A-R-Z. I couldn't spell for a second there. So make sure it's W-A-R-Z out there. And that way you'll find it. If you like that page and everything it offers, ask for membership. You can also go to Instagram and look for Geek Wars. And again, that's W-A-R-Z. And just follow me there. So, until next time, this is your Chic of Geek, Rico, saying thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. I hope I've given you something to think about. And like I always say, so let it be written, so let it be geeked.